Filmmaking duo Tom Berkeley and Ross White began working as a partnership in 2018 as they co-founded Floodlight Pictures as a vehicle through which to mount their filmmaking projects. Well, HBO acquired their debut short film Roy, which was shortlisted for the Best British Short Film at the 75th BAFTA Awards, and the film starred BAFTA winner David Bradley and Academy Award winner Rachel Shenton. And their new short film, An Irish Goodbye, marks the duo's second collaboration, and the screenplay for which was the inaugural winner of the First Flight's Short Film Fund. Well, An Irish Goodbye has played at over 60 international film festivals across 6 continents and has also qualified for BAFTA and IFTA consideration. And now, ladies and gentlemen, An Irish Goodbye has been nominated for an Academy Award in the Best Live Action Short Film category for 2023. So let's welcome the creative director duo of Ross White and Tom Berkeley. So ladies and gentlemen, well, guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us on.
Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate both of you on your Oscar nomination. What does that feel like?
It's still a very surreal feeling, to be honest. Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy 24 hours since we found out. I've got to say that. But yeah, it's a sort of pinch me, dream come true kind of moment for us. Yeah, the Academy Awards are the pinnacle, you know. So this is a big moment.
Well, you know, when you're creating a film, do you have any idea that the film that you're working on, you know, pouring in blood, sweat, and tears into your project, having any idea that it would ever be nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah, you really don't. I think you just hope that it finds an audience in whatever respect that may be. And we were blown away, even on the film festival circuit, to see how well it was resonating, you know, away from Ireland and away from the UK. And it just seemed to just keep going. And we you know, expecting at every turn that it would sort of come to an end. But it seems to just have kind of 9 lives. It's a bit like a cat, this film. It just keeps going. So we're really thrilled.
Well, it's a, you know, An Irish Goodbye. I had the pleasure of watching the film and absolutely loved it. I want to watch it again because there's just something so infectious about the characters. So where did the idea come from to create this actual film?
Yeah, I had been at a soccer game with my dad, and I'd seen these two brothers kind of sat a couple of rows ahead of us watching the game, and it was a very boring match. So I found myself sort of compelled watching these two because they had a very fiery brotherly relationship, very typical in that sense. They were big, sort of burly lads at each other's throats, kind of hurling abuse at each other. But there was this really interesting kind of additional element to their relationship, which was that the older brother was the sort of carer for his younger brother who had Down syndrome. And I found that sort of duality of what was otherwise a very sort of fiery brotherly relationship mixed in with this added element of care and responsibility, and how those two things come together, but also work in kind of opposition at times. And yeah, me and Ross spoke about that the next day, and we just found them really interesting characters, and so they became sort of the early blueprints for these brothers, and we ended up yeah, so the story fleshed out from there, really.
Well, how long did it take you to write the story?
Do you know, this was actually the first screenplay that Tom and I wrote together. So I think we wrote it quite quickly out of pure sort of excitement and ignorance, but maybe that went well for us. I think we sort of wrote it in about a fortnight, I want to say, Tom, the first draft at least, and obviously then after that there's a lot of redrafting and fixing things. But yeah, the kind of the shape of it was in place in 2 weeks.
You know, it seems like the actual subject matter for the film was based around grief, but I found myself as I was watching the film, I laughed, I smiled. There was a spirit of love in this film, even though there's a little bit of brotherly friction between the two. So, why did you choose the story around grief?
I think we're really interested in kind of writing in that space between tragedy and comedy, and a lot of our shared influences when we started writing together were experts at kind of navigating that no man's land. We find that to be very true to life. That space, life is never one nor the other. So if you can kind of tread that path in between it, I think it allows you to look at things like grief in quite a nuanced way that ends up kind of resonating with people differently. I think a lot of the feedback we were getting was that people were glad that there was a film that was tackling difficult subjects but was making them laugh and kind of making them cry. It's that in the same breath, because that's often what life is like. And yeah, we were kind of, that was what we wanted to try and do with the film. So I'm glad that came across.
It came across extremely well. And I have to say, gentlemen, the casting was brilliant. And how long did it take you to cast the characters?
I think we find casting the most enjoyable part of the process. It's really fun part for us. And we had written the first kind of pass of the script before we sort of thought of any actors, and then we actually came across James Martin, who plays the character of Lorcan, who has Down syndrome, and James is actually a guy I was aware of before here in Belfast. James is a bit of a local hero, but I didn't realise that he was an actor as well. And he had just done a BBC Northern Ireland TV movie called Ups and Downs, and Tom and I both saw him in that, and oh my goodness, it was like everything clicked, and we just were like, this is our guy. We've got to build the kind of film around him. So thank goodness James read the script, liked the script, and came on board. And then from there, I mean, when you're doing a brother kind of pairing, you're only as good as the other one. So we had Seamus O'Hara come in, and Seamus put in an audition tape, and it was one of those perfect moments where Tom and I just thought, we've got a film. We've got a film here. Seamus is a remarkable, remarkable actor, and I think he's going to do some massive things.
Well, how did you create such great chemistry between the brothers, played by Seamus O'Hara, who plays Turlough, and then James Marlin, who plays Lorcan?
I have to say a lot of that was down to those guys taking the initiative to build that rapport. Because I think with short films it's difficult. You don't really have the resources or the infrastructure to have a lot of rehearsal, or to spend time together and build up those relationships. But it was going to be so key to the film that we tried to encourage them to spend as much time together before we got there on the first day of shooting as possible. And I think they got into the habit of FaceTiming every night in the sort of weeks running up to the film. They would run lines and learn their lines, but they would then just chat and get to know each other properly. And I think all of that fed in through kind of osmosis into their performances, and it made our job a lot easier for sure.
Well, it's great to see that the actors really dived in and really gravitated to the story, and then for them to work together off to the side, that says a lot about your screenplay.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that it's about sort of getting the right people interested and then getting out of the way as a director, sort of stepping away and letting them do their work as well. And I think we just wanted to create the right environment for these great actors. We should mention Paddy Jenkins as well, another Irish actor who's just hilarious and so underrated in so many ways. But yeah, we love Paddy, and also the iconic Michelle Fairley, who was in Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones fans will know Michelle as Catelyn Stark. So Michelle came in as well. And we were just blessed to have this sort of little tiny 4-strong cast of absolute titans but also, the acting aside, just generous human beings who really came in and gave a lot of love and a lot of time and energy and sort of passion for the story we were trying to tell.
Well, I loved Paddy as the priest, and I fell in love with his character just after his first couple of lines, because he was so funny. It's almost like a dry humor, and I think we all know someone kind of like that. So he's very relatable, but I almost waited for him to be in a scene because his timing was impeccable.
Yeah, he's a real pro. It's so difficult to manage a performance like that and nail the comedy, but also leave space to be present in those more um, yeah, I suppose connective emotional scenes as well. If you go one way or the other, then it doesn't really land. And it was actually Paddy is known for a lot of his comedies. He's a very successful kind of comedic actor in Northern Ireland. But it was actually a play that Ross and I saw him in called Sadie, which is totally at other end of the spectrum and a completely different character to what he usually plays. And it was like a really incredibly dramatic role. And I suppose it was seeing him in that, and the kind of I suppose it's the sad clown thing. It's why the great actor Robin Williams and Jim Carrey and all these people get kind of fantastic in these more dramatic roles, because I think anybody who understands comedy on a really intense level understands tragedy on a really intense level, and he was able to bring both of those to it.
Well, with the priest and the brothers, and you're filming this short film. Was there any ad-libbing of lines within this film? Because the chemistry was so amazing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there was a bit. I mean, the boys definitely loved throwing jokes about on set. The chemistry got so good that they were like sort of badly behaved school children at some point. We had to sort of actually do some scenes. But was there ad libbing, Tom? Can you remember? I think James did a few.
James ad-libbed a little bit. He did. It was in and around the stuff when they're kind of getting into the rhythm of doing these things on their mum's bucket list. It was those scenes were a bit freer, and we kind of able to see things play out a little bit more loosely. So they did have great fun at sort of throwing in some little bits to kind of to pepper it up as well, and as well in the kind of the final scene with the boys together around the fire pit. James particularly, I can ad-libbed a couple of lines there that we loved so much that we ended up kind of cutting into the full scene.
Well, and there's an element of the film, and this really comes down to you two, because it was so brilliant. It was almost like a sleight of hand, because as I was watching it, and then James or Lorcan says he has his mother's list. And I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I never saw the priest give him the list. But the way that you had directed that part of the storyline, the viewer doesn't have a clue until towards the end of the film. And it was a brilliant move, an absolute brilliant move.
Thank you very much. We'll say no more to keep it spoiler free for those who haven't seen.
Yeah. Well, and I do have to commend you on something that I think film largely ignores. And I'm going to step back a bit, because my grandmother spent well over 40 years working with Down syndrome children. And you casted a character with Down syndrome. Was that a part of the original screenplay?
Yeah, it was. And I think we were really interested in, and we always are, in kind of making protagonists out of characters that are often pushed to the fringes of maybe more mainstream typical stories. And I think we find that a very kind of privileged and exciting position as writers, to kind of give voice to these people who haven't been seen in these exciting parts. And I think what was really key for us was that in writing that character of Lorcan, is that he was just as multifaceted and complex and flawed and mischievous, and kind of he swears more than anybody else. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of making him well-rounded. I don't think it wasn't even enough for us to put that character in the spotlight. You then also have to write the part in as juicy way as you'd write any part. And so I'm really glad that we were able to do that, because I think it allowed James to come in and give the performances that he's capable of. But often actors aren't given the material, because sometimes those parts are written fairly kind of two-dimensionally.
Yeah, and because I know that when I've seen films, or maybe seen television sitcoms that do cast a Down syndrome character, we see the normal stereotype. They're kind, they're loving, they're very sensitive and tender. But James brings the character on the opposite spectrum. He's angry. Um, he has a very strong personality, and that actually surprised me. And was that his doing, or was that your doing?
No, I think it was a bit of both. I think we were really interested, as Tom says, to show the sort of, I mean, the character is grieving, so we didn't want to feel like we'd sort of airbrushed it and made it feel too nice, you know. I think it felt true to show the kind of the difficult and the sort of tangly side of grief, and this relationship between two brothers who have become estranged from one another and sort of lost their connection with one another. So I think for us it felt really honest. And then when James came on, he was really excited by that, I think, as well, because it gave him a chance to sort of, you know, James is such a great instinctive actor, I would say, and he really just sunk his teeth into the complexity of all of these different kind of scenes, and the kind of the broad kind of going from comedy in one moment straight into a moment of real drama. So yeah, I think he did brilliantly with that.
Well, what is it like working as a directing duo?
Me and Ross have known each other a long time. We've sort of been working together in like various respects for about 10 years. We met when we were 18. We ran a theatre company together for 4 years. We were living together in London when we were both writing plays, and this was separately at the time. So we've spent so much time kind of in each other's pockets that when we moved into filmmaking and co-directing, luckily we sort of already developed a bit of a shorthand, and we were kind of on a level with each other where, you know, I don't think our sort of egos or anything like that were in the room. We very much view ourselves as a sort of shared brain. So it's always a best idea wins, but it's not like one person's idea. It's like every idea is from this kind of shared brain, which means that the kind of the responsibility just falls on both of us equally. So it's and you know what, I think that on set it speeds us up. You know, one of us can go and speak to the camera crew, or one of us is speaking to the actors. It becomes a much more collaborative experience as well. You know, you have to voice your ideas and your visions to the other person, and you have to be able to communicate from the get-go. So it's for us, I think it just works. It works perfectly. I can't really imagine it any other way because we haven't known anything different.
So then, how do you solve any differences in directing, let's say, a particular scene?
It's a physical fight.
Fist fights behind the monitors. Yeah, no. To be honest, I think we do so much prep. We're sort of prep heavy directors, and I think that's because we work in a duo. But also, I think that's just the way we are as people. So we like to chat things through a lot beforehand, and I think that really informs, if not the specific obstacles you'll come up to, because obviously a film set is full of surprises and things go wrong. But because we're both aware of the intention behind the scene and what we both believe to be the intention, I think anything that comes up, like so often we'll finish a take and we won't even need to speak. You know, we'll both know the note and we'll sort of go and deliver it to different people because we've spoken so much about the intention beforehand. So yeah, I think that's the way we get around it, and then the fist fight as well, as Tom says.
Well, your film, An Irish Goodbye, has been viewed at over 60 international film festivals, over 6 continents. What kind of feedback have you received from An Irish Goodbye?
Yeah, it's been really overwhelming to see kind of how much the story does resonate with people. I think the main thing is that folks are finding it to be a very true representation of their own experiences of losing a parent or losing a loved one, and also kind of, I think, men processing grief and struggling to kind of process their emotions as well, and I think this kind of sibling rivalry and the sort of, and it's kind of an ode to brotherhood in a way, and I think that is these are all universal themes. So we hope that it would travel, but of course you never know. You never know if it's gonna just reach the kind of the coast of Ireland and then stop there. But luckily it didn't.
Well, you know, when I was watching the film, and afterwards, I got to thinking. I said, you know, this would actually make an incredible television series because it's almost like a buddy film. You know, you have two brothers together, you have the priest, and I could actually see this as a television series. You think it could ever go that direction?
Do you know we've had folks say that to us about TV and also feature film. I think, as tempting as that is, I think because the short has, we've sort of feel like we've achieved what we set out to achieve with the short. I think we'll park it for now, but never say never, because if we find something, I think if we find a new question or a new exciting part of that story that we felt like we hadn't explored, then we could always come back to these characters. And as we always say, we definitely want to work with these actors again because they're just exceptional. So we'll find a way to, you know, crowbar them into something.
Well, how long did it take you to film An Irish Goodbye, and what part of Ireland did you film it in?
It was a 5-day shoot, and that took place kind of at various places around the sort of rural outskirts of Belfast. So a place called Temple Patrick, a place called Saintfield, and then the sort of mountain range stuff you see is a place called the Sperrin Mountains, and it's just amazing vistas, and you know it's such beautiful landscape that you know we're really lucky to be able to film there and capture it. And you know there's obviously a thriving film and TV industry now in Northern Ireland. So yeah, glad to have been able to do something there.
Well, so you said that this film was filmed over just 5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did give our first idea a mini heart attack, to be fair, when we tried to schedule the film, because it was not a moment was wasted, to be honest. So we had to move pretty quick, but yeah, 5 days.
Well, for all the viewers out there watching, so it takes you 5 days to film it. How long did the editing process take?
Longer than that. I think the edit was about 2 or 3 weeks of the kind of the actual hardcore editing, and then you know a couple more days here and there for your sound mix and the color grade. And yeah, we were again really lucky to have worked with pretty much all of the same post-production team as on our first film as well. So we'd already started building up a relationship with these people. So we were able to move quite quickly through that process. And yeah, it all came together in a really kind of pleasing way actually when we got to that point.
So why the so why the title An Irish Goodbye?
Well, an Irish goodbye is saying, I think for me at least, it means sort of like sneak out of the party before your time and sort of without saying goodbye, which, yeah, felt like an interesting sort of double entendre for, I guess, for the mum passing away at the start of the film uh, before sort of the family was ready for her to go, and that sort of untimely passing of somebody without having a chance to really say goodbye. So, yeah, it just felt like a nice little double meaning for us.
You know what I what I would like to see, because I remember when I was a kid, we'd go to the Saturday matinee to watch a feature film on a Saturday afternoon, and they would play like 15 minutes worth of cartoons before the movie actually started. I'm thinking now that the film industry needs to start taking these amazing short films and place them in front of the feature so more people can see the excellent work that you two are doing as well as other directors.
I totally agree with you. I mean, you know, one of the joys for us being able to attend film festivals and be out there on the circuit is getting to see all of this amazing work that's being done internationally. And you know, it's sometimes it's difficult for short films because once they're out there and they've done the film festival circuit, they don't really have much of an afterlife. So I think something like that you're suggesting would be an amazing way for emerging filmmakers to be able to introduce the stories to more people, because there's some of my favorite things made have been short films, and the thought that more people could get their eyes on them and introduce it to the wider public audience outside of your hardcore film festival fans would I think I agree. I think it needs to happen.
Well, kind of give us an inside look here, but behind the vision, okay? Because I've talked to so many filmmakers, but what I want to hear from both of you is being a filmmaker and you're producing short films. Is the idea to produce a short film more of sharpening up your skills or hoping you get that phone call one day to be directing a feature?
Yeah, I guess there's kind of two parts to that. I think a lot of people do see short film as a kind of a calling card for feature film. And I think I'd be lying if I said it wasn't in any way for us. But I think also it's really important to sort of tell the story that's in front of you, you know. And we really wanted to take the form of short film seriously in all of our short films, and push it and see what we could do with it. Because I think if you're sort of always waiting for the next project and saying, "Oh, but when we get to the feature, you'll not really create something you're proud of." So for us, it was important to. I mean, in many ways, I think this short is a little mini feature crammed into 23.5 minutes, to be honest. So we've kind of cheated a little bit, but yeah, I think that's what excites us about short film anyway.
Well, what is the differences between the film industries? Because you had filmed in Northern Ireland. So for both of you, because both of you really get a good look at this. So what's the difference in the film industries between Northern Ireland, Britain, as well as America?
Gosh, I think at least, I mean, I'd say that probably the Northern Irish scene is something that has kind of exponentially grown, like very quickly over the last few decades, and there's a real sort of a real hunger and a lot of new talent that's coming through, and it's a very exciting place to work and to make films. So I think you know, we were chuffed, and we also were very lucky to bring a lot of crew over from the Republic of Ireland as well. So it became a kind of whole island of Ireland affair really with us, and that was a lovely collaboration as well. Um, and then I think in terms of elsewhere, we've not had the fortune of filming yet in America, but we'd love to do that. I hear it's I mean, you know, you guys kind of paved the way in terms of you know, setting the cinematic landscape. So it's a rich part of your culture, and I think it's something that we definitely love to kind of come and get involved with and learn from, and I guess sponge off in a way. So hopefully we'll be able to yeah, have that experience fairly soon.
Well, I will say this, from what I've seen in the last, let's say, 10 years between America, between Ireland, we'll put Ireland in there as well as Britain, the storytelling is better across the pond. I will say that. Not here, where you guys are at, the storytelling is so much better. Here in America, it's funny because the movie goer, a lot of us are really tired of the superhero films. We want to see real stories. We want to see the storytelling that we used to see. You know, back the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, when those films were, when they won an Oscar, you knew why they won an Oscar. And I think you two have a very, very bright future ahead of you. Now that you have been nominated for an Oscar, I think they've now raised the bar for both Ross White and Tom Berkeley. So what's next for you two gentlemen?
Well, we actually are in post-production at the moment on our third short film, which will hopefully be the last short before we do maybe move on to some feature stuff. But the third short film is a little bit different. It's a period short film set in 1849 at the crossover of the Irish famine and the international gold rush. And it follows these two sort of warring Irish sisters who have fled the famine in Ireland to seek their fortune, but they sort of hate each other and are at each other's throats for the whole film. So we've got a real thing with sibling rivalries here. I think a therapist might have a field day with us. I don't know.
Well, when that film is done and you release it to all of the film festivals, I would love to have a screener. I would love to watch it. And I would love to have both of you gentlemen back to discuss that film. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, An Irish Goodbye again has been nominated for an Academy Award in the Best Live Action Short Film category for 2023. And you have just heard and seen Tom Berkeley and Ross White, the amazing directing duo of the most incredible short film, something that is full of, yes, it's based around grief, but it is full of laughter, it's full of love, and when you watch it, you want to watch it again. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned because I will be right back with more.
Sorry about your mother. Aye.
I told you, I'm staying here to look after the farm.
I'm not getting stuck here for the rest of my life. Mother and you.
How's Larkin dealing with it all?
He'll be fine.
Oh, I almost forgot. I think it's a list of things that she wanted to do, you know, before the illness took her.
I'm not going anywhere until Mum's done every single wish.
Right. We do Mum's list, and then we go to Auntie Margaret's. Deal?
Deal.
How many's on there?
100.
100? Look, no, come here! You might have warned me before you gave it to him.